You know, the term narcissist has really worked its way into our vernacular so that people use it with an alarming frequency. And many times it is not used in the proper context. Just so you know, you're not a narcissist if you like to take selfies. You're also not a narcissist if you have some self-centered, tendencies. The American Psychiatric Association and the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Health, the DSM, which is now up to, I believe, 6 or 7 revisions, both list the exact characteristics that need to be present for someone to be diagnosed as having narcissistic personality disorder. So I really want to go over that first. I find that this is a really good benchmark. And then I'd like to share with you my 10 foundational red flags. And there's a couple that are shared with this APA definition, but the rest of them I have come up with through my own experience and my coaching experience. I think they're really important, and I will continue to refer to them throughout this program. I think they're that important, and I think that they are so incredibly consistent. You will see them throughout. Okay, so let's start with this APA definition. So they state that it begins in early adulthood and is seen in people with at least 5 of the following characteristics, and they list 9. The first one is an exaggerated sense of self-importance. They expect to be recognized as superior without matching achievements. Number 2, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Number 3, believes he or she is special and should only associate with other special, high-status people or institutions. Number 4, requires excessive admiration. Number 5, has a strong sense of entitlement. 6, selfishly takes advantage of others to achieve their own ends. 7, lacks empathy or genuine concern for others. 8, is often envious or believes others are envious of them. And 9, shows arrogant, haughty, patronizing, or contemptuous behavior. Now, I don't mean to brag, but my narcissist checked all 9 boxes. Yours may not. But once you get to 5, you realize that there's definitely a problem. Now let me share my 10 red flags. These are the red flags of a toxic person, and they are non-negotiable deal breakers in your life. So I have many clients that move on to their next chapter, I like to call it, after they've been in a romantic relationship with a narcissist. And I have found that these red flags are incredibly important when you're looking for someone. If you identify any of them in the early stages, it's best to move on, stay friends, and look for someone else. It avoids a lot of heartache later on, as I'm sure if you've experienced a romantic relationship with a narcissist, you already know. All right, let's dig in. So my number 1 foundational red flag is that they completely lack empathy. They're just not able to exhibit it. That was in the APA definition as well. So I got to tell you, when I was in the worst part of my relationship with my narcissistic father, I don't even think I knew what the word empathy meant. Like, we didn't even use it. And it took me a while to recognize that he did not ever exhibit empathy. But one time stands out, and it became incredibly clear. Oh, before I tell you that, I wanted you to know, empathy is the ability to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It's understanding how other people think and feel, right? It's what helps us have high emotional intelligence. It's the most important part of emotional intelligence, because when you're able to have empathy, you can lead differently, you exist differently, you have better, deeper relationships because you understand that you're not the only person on the planet. So anyway, back to my story. So my mother passed away very suddenly. And that was kind of what drew back the curtain, if you will, from me realizing that my father suffered from narcissistic personality disorder. Up until then, I was an adult. I just thought he was unkind and maybe not very patient and not very interested in me. But it was obviously much more than that. So anyway, she passed away very suddenly. It wasn't an accident. She wasn't ill. But she thought she had food poisoning, and we went to the hospital, and it was congestive heart failure. I didn't know that we had heart disease in our family. So it was all very shocking. And that was a Monday morning. She went to the emergency room. By Tuesday night, she had a massive stroke across both hemispheres. She was completely unresponsive. So here it was alarming that to learn that we had heart disease in our family. Obviously, it was an unbearable grief that I went through losing my mother. So about a year later, I find myself having an irregular heartbeat. And it was bad enough that I went to the doctor. And I had 2 small children at home. I'm married, I had a full-time job, and here I was trying to do so much for my father during this time. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor says to me, he takes an EKG, and he says, I really want you to follow up with a cardiologist, like I'm concerned. Well, now I go home, and I'm really flipping out. And I'll never forget this. I'm in my kitchen with my husband, and my father stops by. And so I took this opportunity to tell my father what was going on with my health. And so I said, in that voice that you use when you're really scared about something, I said, Dad, I'm really frightened. My doctor wants me to go to the cardiologist. I have an irregular heartbeat, and I'm scared. Obviously, my mother had just died a year earlier from heart disease. This was a scary thing, right? My father looks up at me and he goes, I know, my back is killing me. Wow. I was really glad that my husband was there to witness it, because it felt like a candid camera moment where, I thought, who's punking me in this moment? Anyway, that's number 1. Number 2, they need to have control. Not just control of the immediate situation, control of everything, control of the family, control of the organization, control of the board, control of the meeting, control of you, control of everyone in the room. And when they don't have control, they get very upset. Also, if you want to stay on their good side, then you stay on their script. And when you stay on their script, their script is something like, oh, you're the best, whatever. You do this so well. I don't know anyone else who could do it better. Thank you so much for doing this. They have to be appreciated and recognized and praised all the time. So you have to do all those things. That's their script. When you challenge them, when you ask them a question like, why would you do this? Excuse me. Why would you do this? They get very upset, and they're going to have some kind of tantrum. That will be probably a narcissistic rage storm. We're going to talk about that later on. And it can be really bad. So, you have to just, if you want to please them, stay on their script. They also like to have control of information and finances. And these are interesting. So with regard to information, they're going to tell you some things. They're just not going to tell you everything, because they've got to maintain some control about whatever the subject matter is. Also, when it comes to finances, they're going to use it to control you. So this is often called coercive control. This is where you see the person who suffers from narcissistic personality disorder giving you an allowance or monitoring your credit cards, or, there's very little, there's no equal relationship. In a parent relationship, which is what I had, my father threatened me with disinheritance all the time. It was like a carrot that he held out there. And that's what they do, right? They weaponize whatever it is that they can use to control you. Number 3, they lie all the time. They lie to make themselves look better. They lie to pretend they're compassionate about something. And here's the worst part of it. They believe their own lies. I got to tell you, I don't know if I just read that somewhere that I would really believe that, but I saw it in practice. My father told me a lie. I, of course, as I'm a licensed attorney, I went to him and I presented my case and I said, these are all the reasons why this is a lie. Here's all the controverting, evidence. And 5 years later, he told me the same lie. 5 years later, he was still believing he had committed 1,000% to that lie. Number 4, they don't communicate well or sometimes at all. This is the kind of thing, again, if you haven't had any experience with someone who suffers from this personality disorder, you just can't relate to this. But narcissists never express their thoughts and feelings. They're never going to share their emotions with you. They expect you to be able to read their mind. And when you can't, they get very upset about it because they're going to force you to do things that meet their wants and needs, right? So doesn't matter about if they communicate or not. You're supposed to understand. And it makes having any kind of resolution nearly impossible because they're never going to have those uncomfortable conversations. So, we'll talk more about uncomfortable conversations, but I think that that's where you get deeper in a relationship. But people who suffer from NPD will never have those kind of conversations. Okay, number 5, they don't like boundaries and they won't respect yours. Boundaries are your personal rules and limits. No one gets to tell you they're wrong. They're yours. Now, they're incredibly important and boundaries are there to protect you. So by no means am I diminishing the value of you setting boundaries. I think it's incredibly important. However, you need to be aware that people who suffer from narcissistic personality disorder treat boundaries like a fence around a parking lot. They're just going to blow through them because they don't have respect for you. They only respect themselves. Number 6, they are never accountable for their actions. This was the one that I was Googling. I was putting it into Google trying to figure out what was wrong with my father. Never accountable for their actions. It is always someone else or something else's fault, never theirs. When you confront them with something, why did you say this? Why did you do this? They are going to deflect, they are going to deny, and they are going to lie. And it tends to go in a massive circle because they will not accept responsibility. Also, they're going to give you a non-apology apology. So this is what narcissists do. They like to apologize for something, not for hurting you. So, if you say, hey, when you said this, it hurt me, they're going to say, I'm sorry I ever went to that place. I'm sorry I ever talked to that person. They're not going to say, I'm sorry for hurting you. It's just not going to happen. That would be accepting responsibility. Number 7, they tend to behave one way to some people and a different way to others. And this is known as wearing a mask or being two-faced because they behave a certain way in public. Like my father had this great big public persona. He was known to be charismatic, loved to grab the microphone, was the speaker at everything, organized leader, generous, wonderful. These are the terms people would describe him. Except no one knew that when he got behind closed doors, that he was emotionally abusive to both my mother and I my whole life. And, I didn't even know. I knew he was a screamer. He certainly wasn't a screamer in public, but he was a screamer at home. And, he made both of us cry a lot. But again, I didn't know that was a personality disorder. till I put all the clues together. Number 8, they love to punish their victims. Now, they use all kinds of tactics, but 3 of them in particular are their favorites. So the tactics they love the most in their toolbox are the silent treatment, gaslighting, and triangulation. Now, the silent treatment, pretty self-explanatory, but please understand there's a big difference between no contact and the silent treatment. Like, you're not giving the narcissist the silent treatment by going no contact. We can discuss that further. The silent treatment is where they absolutely refuse to acknowledge you and resolve any kind of conflict. They're just going to walk away from you. Gaslighting is where they tell you their perception of reality is correct. Even though you were there and you experienced it, they're going to tell you it didn't. And they're going to say it in a very clear and convincing way, and they're going to make you feel like you're crazy. That's what gaslighting is. And triangulation is where they pit 2 people against one another. Usually, if it's a parent, it's going to be 2 siblings. If it's a friend, it's going to be 2 other friends. You know, whatever in your dynamic, whoever's closest to you, they're going to pit you and someone else against each other. And they're going to tell each of you different information. And when you 2 have any kind of disagreement, they get to come in and be the savior or the peacemaker or the martyr, whatever role they want to play. It's all manipulation. Number 9, they have an excessive need to be recognized, revered, praised, admired, envied all the time. It's like oxygen to them. It is literally called narcissistic supply, and they will do anything to get it. My father used to solicit it if it didn't occur naturally. Don't I look great? My pants are smaller. I lost weight. Can't you tell? Isn't my hair great? Come on. But if you don't do those things to them, right? Recognize, admire, praise, envy, whatever, or you get more than them, oh, look out, you will be punished. And they will employ one of those tactics from the last one, either silent treatment, triangulation, or gaslighting. You definitely will be punished. And number 10, this one was really hard for me to realize. They stay in the shallow end of the relationship. What do I mean by that? They never ask you open-ended questions. They never dig deep in the relationship. They never spend time discussing things with you, having those uncomfortable conversations. My father only asked me closed-end questions. He asked me, chocolate or vanilla? He asked me, do you want to have dinner? He didn't ask me, what was my fondest desire in life? What was my goal? Why did I not like vanilla? Like, never. Because they truly don't care. It's hard. It's hard to really wrap your brain around that. That's a lot of information. But I want you to know, unhealthy relationships contain these toxic red flags, and you need to be aware of them.